An entitled, greedy landlord tries to force my friend out of their house by raising the asking price by nearly $80,000, essentially pricing my friends out completely and risking them with the possibility of being homeless. So I banded together with my friends and I decided to get some revenge, as we sabotaged every single attempt these owners made at trying to sell this place. And as a result, my friends were able to buy this place for a far cheaper price than what these greedy jerks were trying to offer. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, gazumping occurs when an agent or seller accepts an offer you make to buy a property at an agreed price, but the property is sold to someone else. This usually happens when the vendor sells the property for a higher amount. And trust me, this word and this definition is going to be important later on. This entire situation happened 15 years ago, and it is one of the proudest moments of my life. My best friend and her husband have 5 kids together. They lived in an expensive city and rented an old 4-bedroom house for $400 per week. The house was very run down, with a disgusting kitchen and sink drains, but it was all they could afford at the time. Still, they made it work. The owner was a nice old lady who was extremely wealthy and very fond of my friend. She froze the rent for 5 years and promised to let them buy the house once they had saved enough to get a loan from the bank. Now, as she had helped other people in a similar way, they knew that they could trust her, and so they saved every cent that they could. It took them 5 years, but they finally told her that they were ready. But unfortunately, 2 days later, the nice old lady passed away, quite literally before anything was put in writing. Well, this is where the new owners step in, and they are the 4 children of this lady. Each one of them is extremely wealthy in their own right. I mean, they did inherit a huge portfolio of properties. When they first spoke to my friends, they assured them that the sale would still go through, but they would have to wait until probate had settled. Well, feeling confident, my friends started making some changes to the place. They started by stripping down the wallpaper, painting the walls, and making plans. Eventually and finally, the probate was settled, and the owners agreed to go ahead with the sale for the previous agreed price. My friends then applied for the loan, but much to their shock, it was refused. The owners had raised the asking price by $80,000 without telling my friends. And to make things even worse, the house would be put up on the open market. In 7 days, there would be an open house, and with the market the way it was, it would probably sell immediately. My friends were devastated. They might be able to borrow enough, but it would take longer than a week to get it. To make matters worse, property prices had soared recently, and rents had gone up a lot, while theirs had still been frozen. Not only were my friends going to struggle to get the money, but if the place was sold to someone else, and they were asked for a higher rent or be evicted, it would be nearly impossible to find an affordable place with more than 2 bedrooms. I was scared for my friends, but I was also incandescently angry. Those greedy jerks were some of the wealthiest people in the city. They were screwing over a struggling family for less than $20,000 each. They didn't need the money, it was pure greed, and it was totally obvious that they had always planned to do this. So when my friends scrambled to come up with the money, I started plotting. I looked up advice on what helps to make a sale. We need to make the place as undesirable as possible without making my friends look like bad tenants. For starters, we moved all the furniture in from the walls, added some extra furniture, and borrowed ornaments and hung a load of motorcycle memorabilia on the walls. And we did this just to make the place feel more smaller. Also, my friend boiled a head of cabbage on the stove, and we sprayed ammonia around the front and back doors, because that way it'll smell like all the neighborhood cats have been marking their territory. We also poured 24 rotten eggs down the drain to make it smell like sewer gas. We then obtained a moldy old couch and dumped it in front of the neighbors across the road with their permission. We also started calling other friends for help. Anybody with a loud and crappy car was asked to do a few laps in front of the block during the open day. The street was unusually busy that day, and everyone we knew found a reason to drive by, so it was practically rush hour. We also called all of our mates out from the rugby club, and a big portion of our club are very large men. The next door neighbors set up a barbecue in their front yard, and we offered free food and cheap beer. Well, they came on motorcycles wearing the roughest gear they had, and there was definitely quite a crowd. Now, a lot of people showed up for the open day, and quite a few were in and out within minutes. One lady sat in her car and watched the party next door before completely driving away. Now, the one person who stayed any length of time was brave enough to start up a conversation with someone leaving the party. He asked if they were often there, and he was told that every couple of weeks or so, they have an after-party morning, and the party the night before was 3 doors up. The partygoers also helpfully mentioned the troublesome drains that are always getting blocked by the tree roots, and they cause the place to really stink. And after this potential buyer heard that, he left without making any kind of offer. So eventually, my friends were the only ones to make an offer. They still had to pay more than what they planned, but not as much as these greedy jerks wanted. My friends then signed the papers and paid the deposit deposit that day. So when a brave buyer eventually stepped forward and put an offer down for $30,000 more than my friends, there was nothing the owners can do about it, as there are strict anti-gazumping laws. And I really wish I could have been there in person to see the look on these owners' faces when they eventually found out. Wow, I love it when people get some solid revenge on people who are clearly very greedy. Like seriously, just look at the way they treated the original poster's friends. They were so looking forward to having this place to live in and to have a place of their own that they could buy. But instead, these crappy people tried to raise the price and essentially force your friends out on the street. Like that is so unacceptable, and it's honestly so ridiculous. So I personally love this kind of revenge because people like this, in my opinion, absolutely deserve it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My job is incompetent in a way that I've never seen before with any previous job I've ever worked. And after only working here for 2 weeks, I'm honestly considering walking out and never coming back in. Because at this point, I'm so frustrated that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, honestly, things at my job are a complete mess, and I really just need to talk it out. For starters, 2 tables came in and already they ran out of gumbo in the back. The customers had to wait 30 minutes for it, and these were coursed meals, so they had to eat all their other food and finally get 1 cup of gumbo at the end. And at another table, we had to get free appetizers for theirs. I mean, have we never heard of having any kind of prep? Then on a 3-top, I put in 2 taco dinners and a pasta dish. The kitchen then hands me 2 of their entrees, the taco and pasta, but we don't use trays and they have these weirdly shaped dishes, so it's only like 2 plates per trip. When I returned for the other tacos, they were nowhere to be found. I asked the assistant manager where they are, and he just looks at the ticket and goes, I don't know. And it's like, what are you talking about? Just read the tickets. Another time, I was having to pick things out of the salads because the kitchen just ignored all the modifications. I'm always having to ask them to change out sides that they got wrong, and having to ask them to switch sizes from cup to bowl because they got those wrong as well. Like seriously, can they not read? And before anyone would ask, the staff is fully English speaking. No one there even speaks Spanish, so it makes no sense how the Hispanic chefs from my other jobs can do literally everything perfectly, but these guys simply can't do it. And I was catching all of these things thankfully before I left the kitchen. Then we were out of literally everything drink-wise and a lot of our food. Oh, you want a very specific drink? Sorry, we don't have that either. Literally on some of the tables, there was only 1 person at each table who actually got what they initially wanted. If they wanted shrimp tacos, I would have to say to them, sorry, but we don't have any shrimp. And then the other servers would be like, you have to check to see what's out. And I'm like, yeah, but that list should have been like 1 to 3 items max, not 80% of the stupid menu. Don't talk at me like I'm the one who's unprepared here. Now here's the thing. I have only been there less than 2 weeks, but from day 1, I was kind of already suspicious about the place because they don't operate efficiently. There's not even an ice well behind the bar, nor is there even an ice maker. They buy bagged ice, which is just so stupid. And they have 3 sinks, yet they don't do the tri-sink method, and they only use 1 for soapy water and 1 of them for clean and no sanitizing. Even the shady club that I used to work at that illegally sold liquor used the tri-sink method with sanitizer. And on top of that, not 1 of the hand washing sinks has soap. None of them. If you want to wash your hands, you have to go to the bathrooms. And I don't even think they're washing their hands, as I saw the other server go straight from taking out the trash to a table. And that is seriously just so disgusting. Not to mention that I saw a mouse running around the dining room, literally right next to tables being used on my first day. I was very close to walking out today because, to be honest, it's just ridiculous how unprepared they are. And that really makes me look bad to customers. But not that it matters anyways, because we have a tip sharing system. It's honestly just 1 red flag after the other, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, that job sounds awful, and if I was in your shoes, I would be looking for another job. That place does not sound like a good place to work. Like seriously, they have rats in the restaurant, they're never prepared with any of their food, no one's washing their hands, and everybody's getting everything wrong all the time. And I totally understand where you're coming from. Here you are on the front line trying to figure this stuff out, and it only makes you look bad. It doesn't reflect badly on the host or any of the chefs in the back. This literally only comes back to you because you're the most forward-facing customer service rep there is in the restaurant. And that is so unfair to you. You're not even asking a lot of them, you're just asking them to do their job. But they can't even do that, and that would honestly drive me crazy. But the biggest red flag for me is the fact that you've seen all of this with only working there for 2 weeks. Like, this is not something you want to see this early into a job. And in my opinion, I think this should be more than enough for you to try and find another job, because this place sounds like the absolute worst. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories. My best friend was a complete jerk on our vacation, and I'm honestly at such a loss on what to do about our friendship. Here's what happened. Okay, this happened about a month ago, but I'm still in disbelief about this and I need to rant. Basically, my friend, who we will call John, was invited to a family vacation when we were both teenagers, and he was a complete jerk the entire time, but I really want to know what everybody else would think. To begin, I had to wake him up, which is not too big of a deal, but it is a bit annoying. And then when we went kayaking, he fell asleep in the back and basically made me chauffeur him around the lake. And to me, this was also passable because it was early and I liked having the workout. But after we were done, this is what really started to anger me. We used to tandem kayak, so it was a bit heavy, so me and my mom had to both carry it up the rocky path while he carried the oars. He is smaller, but he left us behind and just waited at the top of the hill staring at us. When my mom pointed this out to me, it made me a bit mad, but this is the tip of the iceberg. On the final day, John made a very offhanded comment to my mom, and he complained how we didn't do something all day every day. And this comment really bothered me, my mom, and my dad especially, because he came for free. And that made me think of some other things that I glanced over, but we'll get to that in a bit. On the day that we had to get out, I again had to wake him up, which again, that's fine. But what wasn't okay was that he had his headphones on, he sat on the couch and was playing on his Nintendo Switch and didn't respond to anybody. And he did the bare minimum while only packing his stuff and only his stuff. At one point, my mom asked him if he wanted something to eat, but she got no response from him, even after repeating herself a second time. Now, my mom hates repeating herself, so this made her very mad. Now, me, taking note of this, tried to pick up the slack in any way that I could. When we went outside to finish packing and throwing things away, he just stood there meandering about in his own little world, and when we got home, I had to open his door and snap him back to reality, only for him to then go inside, sit down, and go back to his own little world. I mean, he didn't even bring in his own stuff. And the cherry on top of everything is that he didn't say thank you, and neither did his dad. So obviously this is pretty bad as is, but trust me, it gets way worse. After he left, we unpacked, and at some point, my mom caught me in the kitchen, and the rant of the century took place. First of all, and most important, he was very, very rude to my mom. As I mentioned before, he ignored her regularly, but he would also interrupt her when she was talking to me and start to take over the conversation. And there's even more. At one point during the vacation, I played a little joke by putting one of his flip-flops on top of the fridge, which is harmless, right? Well, apparently that was a wrong thing for me to do. I then completely forgot about this flip-flop, and funny enough is that he lost his other one under the bed, and when he couldn't find the flip-flops on the last couple of days, we literally searched everywhere. My mom one day came in the room while I was in the shower and asked John if he looked under the bed, and he said yes, and my mom didn't think that he did, so she gets on the floor and looks under the bed, and there's one of the flip-flops. She then says, "You looked under the bed?" John nods his head, and my mom says, "Why don't you check again?" He then leans down, still on the bed, but she says, "No, get on the floor," with John doing so reluctantly. John then looks my mom dead in the eyes and says, "Oh, I didn't lift that." And for context, the sheets of the bed hung over the sides of the bed, so he didn't look under the bed. He just looked at the sheet and thought that that was looking. There were also smaller things that made us very mad. Like on day one, I noticed that he was a bit smelly. And sure, puberty is weird, so I decided to mention this in a polite way, but he just denied it, and I told him he was wrong. My mom also noticed it too, so we decided to run to the store and just get him a cheap thing of deodorant. But then he never used it once, and we think he took it, but we really are just not sure. John also packed his bags terribly. We went to the mountains, and it is the summer in the United States, and for that type of weather, you'd expect mostly short sleeves and shorts, and maybe 1 to 2 sets of warmer clothing just in case. We also told John's mom to bring waterwear, like swim trunks and shoes, and he did bring the trunks, but we had to buy him shoes, and we also had to buy him shoes because he only had his flip-flops. He didn't just not bring proper clothing, he also didn't bring his own shampoo, body wash, or washwear, like a washcloth or a loofah. John also regularly interrupted a joke story that I was telling, and he would constantly interrupt my train of thought and had the audacity to ask questions afterwards. He also told my mom to get more sweet tea on the second to last day. However, I think the true worst thing is his lack of hygiene. He had to be constantly reminded to shower, and then would get in the hot tub, which is gross, but I seriously don't understand how in your teenage years, you need to be reminded to constantly shower and brush your teeth. So honestly, I'm looking for some kind of opinion. I haven't even listed everything just to try and keep this lighter, but seriously, what do you think? Am I blowing this out of proportion? And how should I process my friendship moving forward? What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, I think John is one of those people where, yeah, you took him on on vacation, but this is the last time that is ever happening again. Like, this is a lesson learned that you could probably only figure out the hard way. Because I'm sure your family never anticipated that John would be this much of a mess. Like, seriously, you guys are gonna be hiking and doing all kinds of like outdoor stuff, and he only shows up in flip-flops? Like, seriously, how is that in any way, shape, or form a responsible way to handle things? So no, I don't think you blew this out of proportion or anything like that. And I think your assessment of John really is exactly as it is. He doesn't sound super reliable, and it's probably not someone you ever want to take on vacation again. Because from the sounds of it, this does not sound like someone I would want to deal with for a second time. My parents make me feel worthless, and I'm now honestly dreading going back to America. Because right now, I'm so stressed out that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm currently in Japan, returning tomorrow, and I'm already feeling like my life is going back to the dumpster the more I talk to my parents. The stress train begins with my parents already making me feel like a failure when I'm just looking for support. I've sacrificed so much for them, but it's still never enough. I was thinking of doing online classes to get a head start for next semester, but since I'm so close to graduation, there aren't many options left online for my advanced levels. So I asked my mom for assistance because she is a college advisor at a different school, but instead of actual help, she sent me some very belittling text messages. I said to her, I think I can handle 2 more classes because most of my classes are online this semester, and they honestly seem easy. Do you think you could help me find these classes online at different schools? My advisor said that they do not offer these online in the fall here. My mom responded by saying, this is why I was trying to get you to do more hours the past 2 years. So I said to her, I did 15 hours every semester since I started school. But okay, I guess never mind. My mom then left me on red. I understand I was rude, but I felt completely insulted by that. Will they ever understand what I've done to get where I'm at? I mean, I'm recovering dyslexic and extremely ADHD, and being where I am should be a miracle, but it's just never good enough. I went to community college to save money, and it was free where I went, while they let my sister go straight to a 4-year college. I took 15 hours every semester, and the minimum at my university is 9 hours. And I also did winter and summer classes. My sister failed the same class 4 times and others, while I've never failed a single class. I've had steady jobs and I've never been fired. I'm currently working full-time at the university to save money, and yet my sister just got fired from her 3rd job in 2 months. She can't make friends to find a roommate for college, so I offered for her to live with me, even though she's done terrible things to me. The only reason I'm doing this is to help my parents save some money. But despite all of this, we're seen as equally bad, and I'm considered lazy for not doing more. I'm being held at a completely different standard, and it's making me realize that being here in Japan with very limited contact has relieved my stress because I can use not contacting my family as a tangible excuse. I feel bad for feeling this way because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, for starters, I think it's very nice of you to want to like help out your parents and like help them save money, but also you would be a fool for letting your sister live with you. Like seriously, she sounds like an absolute mess, and she does not sound like she has her life together in the slightest. She's been fired multiple times in like 2 months, she's failing her classes, and she just literally is not taking any of this seriously. And yet on the other hand, you are doing all these good things despite having so many setbacks in front of you. And with that, I think it would be a really bad idea to let your sister into your home, because the way she's acting, in my opinion, is very irresponsible, and you do not deserve to go down the same path that she did, all for the sake of trying to help your parents save money. Am I the jerk for not checking on my friend after she suddenly dropped out of my wedding party? Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I was very excited to ask 2 of my friends who I see the most to be in my wedding party. Let's call them Lisa and Shelly. They both said yes, and it was great. But 3 months in, about 4 months before the wedding, Lisa said that she couldn't afford it and has dropped out. And I said it was alright, but I was a bit hurt. I had so far asked them to buy a dress that was maybe about $100 to $120, and I had paid for drinks and food at the one meeting we've had. Well, Lisa and her boyfriend both work and make decent money, and they pay low rent since I rented them a suite as I manage a building, so I was confused that they couldn't afford it. Shelly isn't working much, so I said I could help her pay for her dress if it would help. After Lisa dropped out, I asked Shelly if she was still okay doing it. Her and Lisa are very close, and also I just wanted to be sure. Well, she said that she did, and that was great. That same night on our group chat with the 4 other girls in the wedding party, Shelly started texting that it was crazy that I expected them to pay $100 for a dress to be in the wedding, and then she dropped out of the chat. I was really hurt, and I felt very confused why 2 of my closest friends, who I've always been there for, wouldn't step up to be a part of my wedding. wedding when I would do anything to be in theirs if they asked me. Now, as my wedding isn't far, I needed to replace one of them soon, and I knew the perfect girl to do it. So I asked her the next day so that she could have time to prepare. She was so happy, and she said that she would be honored. I had wanted to ask her, but we already had 6 people each, so I was happy that I got the chance to after what had just happened. It honestly made the hurt of my 2 best friends dropping out a little bit less. I didn't need to replace Lisa because her boyfriend was in the wedding party too, so they both just dropped out. After about a week of nothing from Shelly, I get a text message saying how awful it is that I didn't check on her seeing how she was doing or to make sure that she didn't want to do it before I replaced her. And I am honestly absolutely floored that she is angry with me about this. She has since sent me text messages saying how hurt she is and that she doesn't know me anymore, and has started saying bad things about my fiance to people they both know. And after this, I don't even know if their friendship is worth salvaging. So am I the worst friend ever? Or is it normal that I'm thinking maybe she never was my friend? What should I do? Wow, the fact that they dropped out over a $100 dress and then tried to be like, wow, you didn't even check on me. Like, seriously, do they not realize the original poster is getting ready for a wedding? Like, they don't have time to coddle all of your feelings. Like, that is such a selfish way of acting, and honestly, the original poster doesn't deserve that. So no, you're definitely not the jerk in this situation, because your friend is acting incredibly spoiled and very entitled, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.